I'm going to be honest. You're going to need a notepad, a bucket of popcorn, and some refreshing beverage for this one. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Patrice. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for being here. Please be sure to look at the other content. If you enjoy that content, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel. For my returning subscribers and members, hey y'all, welcome back. So let me jump right into it because this is already going to be a pretty long video. Today we are going to be making a pair of senior pants for a special senior for this year. And you can make this using just HTV. Today we are going to be printing it out using our dual head DTF printer, and we're also going to be using a little bit of HTV, and to get that HTV cut out we're going to be using our Siser Romeo to get that done. So I don't want to prolong this. I do want to let you know, anytime that you are using DTF, I've said it over and over, especially when I first started doing DTF, I kind of let you guys know that you just need to be safe when printing out with DTF, whether it's actual DTF, as we're going to be doing today. This is not the hack. Or if you're doing a sublimation DTF hack, the adhesive powder has been said to cause certain conditions and you don't want anything messing up your respiratory system. So there are different masks and things that you can wear, but I do want to let you know that. So check into that if you already have respiratory issues. But nonetheless, we are about to make these super cute pants, and I'm going to show you how to get this done from start to finish. We're going to be using the Silhouette Studio Business Edition to get this done, export it out, and open it up into our RIP software, which is a special type of software so that we can print white. Now, you can use this if you want to do sublimation. Of course, you can't put this on black unless you do some sort of hack with it, but you can do this type of design for sublimation. If you have a pair of white polyester bottoms, that would look really cute, but nonetheless. So that's what we're going to be doing today. A link to everything that I'm going to be using today will be listed below in the description. So let's get started, y'all. Okay, y'all, so before we head into Silhouette Studio to design our image, we are going to make a quick stop into Creative Fabrica. And Creative Fabrica is an image database full of so many different types of media images that you can use. And I absolutely love it. I do have a subscription plan with them, and I pay about $59 for the year. And you can't beat that, y'all. You cannot beat it. So right now we are going to pull our patterns from Creative Fabrica, and I'll show you the patterns that we will be using today. Now you can simply do a quick search of whatever patterns you may want. I do patterns in the search, or I'll type patterns in the search and maybe just put SVG, and you get a lot of these keychain patterns, and you can totally use these inside of your letters as well. But you want to make sure that you're getting the SVG version. It's just a lot easier. You can use the PNG, but I like the SVG because it just works quicker, and I can change the colors within the pattern a lot quicker than I can with a PNG file. With PNG files, we'll have to do a trace and pull all the different colors apart. But here are some patterns that you can use. Okay, so once you find your patterns, then you're going to click into it, and there's several here, and you will just download it and upload it into Silhouette Studio. Alright guys, so now we're inside of Silhouette Studio, and today we are using the Business Edition because we are going to be exporting this design outside of Silhouette Studio to use in other software. Okay, so that is very important in using Silhouette Studio. Now, if you have a Silhouette cutting machine, you're going to be okay. And you can also cut this out if you plan on doing anything like sublimation onto
a substrate or anything like that. You can still do that, but we're going to be exporting this out so that we can upload this into other software. Now, the first thing I want to do is adjust the cutting mat or the canvas. And right now this is a 12 by 12. We want to make this a 12 by 36 because the size of the pants, it's going to be about 24-25 inches high. So first you're going to access the page setup panel on your right side, and you will then have access to adjust the size of your canvas. And so I'm just going to type in 36 here, and that adjusted our canvas and made it longer. All right guys, so we're getting ready to start, and based on my measurements of the pants leg, I don't want the design to be wider than 4 1/4 inches, and we are going to make it about 22 to 24 inches long. So it's very important to take the measurements of the pants so that you can know how it should look and what size that you want to make it. All right, so this size isn't going to be for every set of pants. This is pretty much customized to the pants that I will be using today. So I'm going to head over to the left and open up a text box. And the word that we're going to be using for one of the pants leg is senior. And I'm just going to do a hard return and type each letter on its own individual line, because that's just going to make it easier when I get ready to start changing the text and designing the layout. All right, so we have it typed in, and I am going to fill that color in with black so that we can see it a little bit better. All right, now we need to adjust the font, and we're going to head over to the right panel and select the textile font or the textile panel, and that is represented by a letter A with a line going down the side. And so we're going to open that panel up, and the font that I want to use today is called College. It's a nice thick font, and it comes in different variations, but the one that we want the font that is just going to be a solid fill on the inside like this. But there are other variations if you are interested. This is the College Combined font, where there is an outline around it. This is the filled font, or the filled version, and this is the outline version. Okay, and so I'm just going to go ahead and use the regular college font, and I can start sizing it now, but with it all still being together, it's not going to give me the exact size that I want. So what I need to do first is I need to ungroup this. So I'm going to right click, and we're going to select ungroup. Now that I have it ungrouped, I can manipulate those letters any way that I want to. So let's go ahead and just kind of size it for the width that we want. And I want it to be at least 4 1/4. And I'm going to reduce the screen size so that we can put it all on one screen, or at least we can see it this way better for now. And then I'm going to drag it down, because right now it was about 18. Now we're getting about 23 inches, but I'm going to go a little bit more because remember, we have all this space in between each letter, and I really don't want that space in between those letters like that. It's up to you. If that's what you like, you can keep it like that, but I like to remove the space and kind of have the letters overlapping a bit. So we're going to exit out of there. I am going to maximize the screen a little bit for us so that we can start working. And the letters are different widths because of course the N is wider. So you can play around with your letters. You can possibly, you know, kind of just make it a little bit wider so that it can fill the space on the pants nicely. So that's what we are going to do now. I'm going to move some of these letters around. Of course, I want to remove any space. So if you just want to stack it like this, you can. I'm probably going to kind of like have some of them overlapping and just going in different directions. So now I'm just going to continue to kind of reshape some of the letters to my liking and flip them around. Alright guys, so this isn't the final layout, but this is what we have so far. And I am actually just going to kind of make it a little bit longer. And I don't want to really distort the letters too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in 3 of the letters with the patterns. So we're going to work on those in a few. But first, let's work on the letters that will remain a solid color. And that's going to be the S. I'm holding down my shift key. And it's going to be the N and also the O. Okay, now that I have those selected, I want to go ahead and change the color of that. So we are going to head over to the right and we're going to select the color panel or the fill panel. Once I select that, I am then going to change the color. Now you can pick from the color palette that they have here, but we are going to head down to advanced. And I am going to enter the hex code. I want to use a maroon or burgundy color. And so the hex code that we're going to be using today for maroon is 800,000. All right, so I'm going to click enter. And that changed it to the color that we want. Now to find hex codes, all you have to do is Google it. So if you know already the different colors that you want, you can just Google for hex codes for maroons and it'll give you different shades of maroons that you could use for your colors. Okay. As you see, this particular color is not a color within the color palette on Silhouette Studio. So the same would apply for other software. Sometimes you will use a CMYK code or RGB code and you'll fill it in to get the exact color that you want. All right, so these are all pretty much set. However, I do want to create an outline for the letters. So I am going to select all 3 of the letters. We are then going to head over to the offset panel, and the offset panel is on the right, represented by a star with an outline of a star, and I am going to select offset. You could either do an offset or an inset for our letters today. I am going to select an offset. If you notice now, there is an outline in red around each of the letters that we have selected. I am not going to select out of those letters. I'm going to head either to the fill panel or I just will pull down the drop down color palette here and select the color that I want if I don't have a hex code available or if there isn't any particular color that I really want. Okay. However, because I am going to be using HTV for this part of the design, it doesn't matter what color I pick now, okay? But I am going to go ahead and we're going to select the drop down and we're going to go ahead and pick the yellow, okay? Now, it doesn't matter for this particular part because for that yellow outline, I am going to be using HTV. All right, so here we have our letters, and if I move those letters over, it's just a solid yellow S behind. And when it gets time to cut the HTV, I don't want that thick of a letter. I want the insides to be hollowed out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to select that S. I'm going to head over to the right and open up the modify panel, which is represented by a rectangle and a circle. And then I am just going to select subtract all. What that will do is that is going to remove that yellow that is behind the maroon S. Okay, so that way when it's time for me to layer, I don't have to layer on top of that HTV. It'll fit perfectly inside. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the N and the O. All right, guys, so We have everything removed, but I do want to go back one step just to show you something. So right now, I'm going to zoom in. As you see, the outline, you know, I like the size of that outline. However, if you want a thicker outline, you can get a thicker outline. So I am going to hold down my Option key and I'm going to select the S, and then I'm just going to drag over to create a duplicate copy of that S so that I can show you how to create a thicker offset. So we're going to head back over to the offset panel, and we are going to select offset, and that's going to create an offset around your S. Internal offset creates an offset within the S, and the distance plays a big part in the size of the offset that you get. So right now the default is 0.125, and I'm perfectly fine with 0.125 for our design because I know that I'm working with a limited amount of space. I should not go beyond 4.5 inches wide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play around with this distance. So if I select a 0.250 offset and I click apply, now that outline or offset is thicker. And so that is how, if you want to make an even thicker outline around your letters, you can. I'm going to stick with the default of 0.125. However, whatever your design is and whatever ideas you have, that may be what you want to do, is increase your outline. Okay, so I just wanted to go back a little bit and show you all that. Now I'm going to delete that. All right, guys, so now I'm going to get ready to change this up a bit. And what I want you guys to remember is that these are two separate parts. They're not together. During this part, you can group it if you want to avoid, you know, moving it out of place. However, I'm just going to go ahead and keep it like this for now. So I do want my E to kind of rotate a little bit. So I think maybe we'll have the E go in that direction. And this is solely up to you. Okay, solely up to you. I'm going to just move that in a little bit because I am going to be creating an outline around the E, the I, and the R as well. All right, so I'm going to move this up. And if you notice, the E is behind the maroon, but it's in front of the yellow. I want the E to be in front of both letters, so I'm just going to select that E, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to bring that to the front. Okay, so that's how our E is going to lay on top of the N. And then for the I will probably leave the I. Let's kind of turn it a little bit. I'll just turn the I just a little bit, maybe in the opposite direction of the E. Yep, like that. And then that I is going to kind of overlap that in a bit as well. And I'm only doing this with the E, the I, and the O, but if you want to overlap any of your other letters, like the O, if you want to turn it and twist it, you can. I'm just doing the E, the I, and the R because my pants, the pants legs that I'm going to be using today, they're pretty narrow. And so I don't have much wiggle room to kind of have the letters go, you know, all over the place. Alright guys, so I have everything overlapping how I want it to be, and so now I just need to make sure it's sized correctly. And so it's about 4.274 inches wide, which is great, but I do want it to be slightly longer. So we're going to bring it to about 23 inches long. All right, so we're there. We're going to leave it like that. It's slightly over 23 inches long, which is great. All right, so now I need to work on our inner parts, and I'm going to maximize this a little bit or zoom in. And what I want to do with the E, I want this E to lay inside of the S and the N, but I also want to create a thin border around it of just space so that it can kind of almost like pop out a little bit more, and it's not really blending in too much with the different letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the E, and then I'm going to select offset again. Now that I have the offset created, and this is going to be at a distance of 0.125, I'm leaving that the same. I am going to just change that color so that I can see the offset better. Let's make it pink. And I want to open up our modify panel. And so I'm just going to bring the offset panel down because I'm going to need it again for the I and the R. But I'm going to open up the modify panel. And if you notice, I still have the pink offset selected. So while holding down the shift key, I am going to select, I'm just going to drag my mouse over the S, and that's going to grab the yellow outline and also the maroon inside. And then I'm also going to do the same thing for that N. Now that I have that selected, I am going to head over to the modify panel, and then I am going to select subtract all. Now that I have subtract all selected, that is going to remove anything that is behind that pink offset. Okay, because I want all of that removed, because I want to create a empty space layer around the E. Okay, so now I'm going to select the pink offset, and I'm just going to select delete, and that created the white border, or the clear border around. It looks like it's a white border, but it's really just a clear border around the E. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing for the I and the R. Okay, so I want to make sure I select any parts of the design that that I is selecting, or that that I is on top of, which is going to be the N and the O. All right, guys, so that's all done. And now it is time for us to bring in the patterns that we plan on using. Okay, so I'm just going to select some random patterns. You may have patterns that you are set on, but I'm just going to select some random patterns. So we're going to head up to File. We're going to select Merge. I'm then going to head to my Downloads folder because that's where my files are, and we are then going to select the patterns that we want. So I'm going to select the SVG, and then let's import this one in. And I'm going to move this over to the side. Now, sometimes SVGs inside of Silhouette Studio will come in all separated. So you do want to make sure you select the entire image and then move it. And then you can determine whether or not they're all individual pieces. All right, so we're going to also bring in another one. All right, so this will be one of the other patterns that we'll use. And as you see, this is one where they're all individual pieces. And so what you want to do, and you can tell that by all of the different bounding boxes that are here. So if I were to click into it, it will move each individual piece. So what I want to do first is I want to select all of that and just go ahead and click Group. All right, and then if we look at this one, that's just all one image. All right, so we're going to get ready to place these patterns within the letters. All right, guys, so the first thing that we're going to do is we want to create an internal offset of each of the letters that we're going to be placing the patterns inside. So I'm going to select the E first, and then I'm going to do this one by one, but you can totally select the E, the I, and the R and do this one step at one time for all three of the letters, but we're going to work with the E first, okay? And I'm just going to select the E, and then I'm going to head back over to the offset panel, and we are going to now select internal offset. Okay, so I'm going to select internal offset, and if you look closely, you can see that there is a red outline within the E. Okay, so we're going to change that color to white, and I am going to remove that outline around there. Now you can change it to whatever color you want. I'm changing it to white because I do want there to be a white background for these letters. Now I still have that internal E selected, and I'm going to hold down my Option key, and I'm going to drag it out with my mouse to make a duplicate copy of it. Now, if you want to make a duplicate copy by selecting the E, right-clicking, and clicking duplicate, you can, and there's your duplicate copy, okay, if that's easier for you. Now I'm going to get ready to place some of the pattern inside of the E, or place the pattern within the E. And so what I want to do is I'm going to bring the pattern to the front, and I have that pattern selected. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to scroll down to bring to front, and then I'm going to place this on top of the E. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to pull it out so that it covers the E how I want it to. And I'm going to kind of slant it a bit too, because the E is slanted. Now right now it is pink, and we want to decide which color we want it to be on the inside. Okay, and so I want to go with a yellow or gold inside. Okay, just to stick with the school colors. And we're going to then head over to the fill panel so that we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave the modify panel open. I'm just going to undock it and bring it over here so that it does not close out. So we're going to head over to the fill panel, and we're going to open that up. Now we're going to change the color, and I don't really want those circles or the circle to actually be seen. So I'm just going to make this just a little bit larger. And we're going to kind of bring it down just a bit here. Okay, so that should be fine. And so for the hex code, we need to expand the advanced options. Let me move the offset out of the way. And for the hex code for this color that we're going to be using, it will be D4AF37. I'm going for a metallic gold color, and so I'm going to select enter, and that is the color that we will be using today for this part. All right, and so what I am going to do next is I am going to close the fill panel for now. We're going to move this over, and then I want to crop this out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select both the E and the pattern. So I'm holding down my mouse and just dragging over both. Next, I'm going to head back up to the modify panel, and we are going to select crop. Now that we selected crop, I am going to right click, and then I'm going to group all of that together. Then we're going to bring this back over to the E and just fill it back into place, just like that. All right, so next I'm going to do the same thing for the I and the R. Now the only thing that I think that I might want to do is, no, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with the outline of the E and the I. So it's possible, and I didn't worry, this part we're doing print. We're going to print this out on our DTF printer. So I'm not really worried about taking away the back of that E. But once we're done with this, if you're satisfied with your colors and everything, you can print this out with your sublimation printer or a regular inkjet printer, whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you want to make a banner or anything like that, you can. But because I'm doing two different things with it, we're going to do DTF and a little bit of HTV, I just have to kind of keep things a little bit separate. All right, so we have this selected already, and I really need to decide what color I want to make the outline of the letters. So let's go with, I still have the outline selected. For now, let's go with the maroon color. And we'll see how that's going to look when we get ready to save it. All right, y'all, so now we're already done with the design, and I already placed the patterns within the I and the R. And so now it's time for us to save it. So in order for us to save it, I would suggest saving it as an SVG because you might want to use HTV for the entire design, okay? So this is set for an SVG file as well. With the E, the I, and the R, you will have more layering to do if you don't cut out the back parts of the design, but you can totally select the E, select all of that, and then you could open up your modify panel, and then you could select subtract all, and then you'll just be able to layer it in without having to layer on top of the HTV, okay? That's if you want to do that. But we just need to select file. I'm going to select save as, save to my hard drive. And we're going to then save this as senior. Let's do senior 2-4. Okay. And so you want to expand the format panel or the format drop down. And when you select that, you want to select SVG. Because if you save it as a Silhouette Studio file, you won't be able to upload it into other cutting software. So you want to make sure that you select SVG and then you select OK. Now, when we expanded it, we have other options here for PNG, JPEG, PDF. We're going to actually save a portion of this design as a PNG because we're going to be using DTF and HTV today. So let's go ahead and save this. Now I can use this in other cutting softwares. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get ready to save our PNG portion and the SVG portion of the outline. What I'm going to do next is go up to panels, and we're going to select by color. Now that the select by color panel is open, I am going to head over to by fill, because I want to select the fill colors, not the outline. And even though the yellow portion here looks like it's an outline, it's actually considered a fill color. So we're going to select the yellow, and then I am going to move it over. And now that I have it moved over, I am going to head back up to file, and I still have it selected. I'm going to head up to file, and I don't want to change the size of anything, okay? So you want to leave it all the same size. So I'm going to head to save selection because I will be saving this and everything else is still on the screen. So I'm going to select save selection, save to hard drive, and then I'm going to say senior 24 outline. I'm going to head to format. We're going to select that drop down menu, and then we're going to save this as an SVG and click OK. I spelled senior wrong, but it's fine. I'll go back and change it. All right, so that's already saved for us. We don't have to worry about anything. In fact, I can go ahead and delete this. Now, if you don't want to use any HTV or anything like that, you just want to print this out for sublimation, or you want to just print this out for 100% DTF, then you would leave your outline here, and then you would go and follow the same steps that we're about to do now for PNG files. But because I don't want to use it for my particular file or my particular design, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. All right, and so next I'm going to select File. We're going to select Save As. I'm going to go to Save to Hard Drive, and then I'm going to type in Senior again, Senior 24, and I'm going to say Senior 24 Print. Okay, then I'm going to expand the Format menu, and then I'm going to select PNG. Okay, now that I have the PNG selected, because that's what my printer for DTF, that's what I need it to be saved as, a PNG. Okay, so now I'm going to select OK. Now we have some other options that we need to select. I'm going to leave the pixels and the height exactly the same because I don't want to change it, but I am going to increase the DPI or the dots to 300. I want it to be a 300 DPI, dots per inch, and I also want to make sure that we have a transparent background, okay? Because if you save it with the white background for DTF and you take it into your RIP software to print it out, it's going to print out that white background, and we don't want that, okay? So I have a transparent background here, and we're going to click Save. All right, so that's saved. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to save this as a studio file still. So I want to go ahead and click Undo Zoom Out, and then I want to also click Undo Delete 3 Shapes, and that's going to bring back my outline. Next, I'm just going to click File, Save As, and I want to save this to my Silhouette Studio library, just in case I need to reuse it and I want to delete all of that other stuff that I saved onto my hard drive, delete it off to save space. Okay, so now I'm just going to type in Senior here at the bottom, and this will be saved inside of my Silhouette library. Okay. Now we're ready to print using our ProColored printer, and we're also using a ProColored RIP software. This software is simply just for importing images in and printing, not designing. And to import, we click onto the import image icon, and here's our design. We need to resize it because it imported into large, and I'm going to leave the proportions button locked, and I'm simply going to refer back to the original size and type the size into the width, and the height will automatically be adjusted. So you want to make sure you keep the proportions button locked. And I went ahead and made a duplicate copy of the design just in case I have another pair of pants that I want to print and I don't really want to waste the other side of the paper. All right, and so everything looks good. We have our whites open for printing and our color is already set for printing. Now it's time for us to actually rip it and get it prepared for printing. And here are some of the settings that I use for my color. When I print out, I make sure my white is at 0.98 for both white channels, and then for the yellow, usually my yellow seems a little bit dull or lighter to me. And so now it's ripping. And once it's done ripping, we need to then print it. And you don't have to mirror it with this software. It's automatically set to be mirrored. However, if you're using another type of software, you want to make sure you mirror it. Or if you're doing sublimation, of course, you need to mirror it when you're printing. So now we're ready to print this out, and I'm just going to right click and select print. And we are going to head over to our printer so that we can see how our image comes out. Alright guys, so the printer that we're using is a ProColored dual head printer, and I thought everything was printing beautifully at first, and then once the white ink started laying on top, I noticed some smearing, and you never want to see that. So one side of the print did smear over on the right side. The left side printed perfectly. So I knew that something was going on with my paper, and the print head had to be touching the film, and so I needed to adjust that. But I wanted to let this continue printing because the left side was printing fine, and I was hoping that I could salvage some parts of the smeared prints.
Alright guys, so that's done printing, and you can kind of hear the amount of noise that the machine makes. The shaker and oven combo, not the printer, but that is the machine. And the noise that it's making is that it is powdering the film. And so there is a flapper inside that is hitting the film to make sure that the powder coats the design, okay? But for now, I need to figure out why I have smearing and smudging over on this side, and I believe that it's more so because I adjusted the paper or the film going through, and so this is probably not getting enough pressure down on here. So I can either move it out a little bit to make sure that it is going through the way that it's going through. Like this side is lifted up a bit. So let's see, I'm actually going to move the shaker a bit, but we can also go ahead and kind of adjust our metal plates here, and that might help it.
So now I'm sending this through the shaker and the oven. As it prints out, it's going to automatically cure for me and just go into a roll. You can print this image out using an L1800 or a smaller formatted printer, but you are going to have to break your design up prior to saving it as a PNG so that you can fit it on the sheet or the size of film that you need to print on. But as you see, with those adjustments I made, everything now is printing out beautifully. So for this portion of the design, we are going to be bringing this inside of Leonardo Design Studio, which is the design software for the Siser Juliet and the Siser Romeo. So I'm just going to select Files. We are then going to import the SVG outline. So the one that we made for the outline of the S, the N, and the O, that's what we will be importing in. And it all came in. We're going to select Cut Only. So next we're going to select Apply. And this is what we are going to be cutting. Now, if you're going to use the same HTV, you can leave it exactly like this. However, I would separate it just to reduce using or wasting any unnecessary HTV. But today we are going to be using different HTVs for the different letters. So I am just going to select the design. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to select Ungroup. And we need to just make sure that this is sized correctly. So taking the measurements when you export them outside of Silhouette Studio is very important. I do know that this is the correct size, 4.194 inches wide by 18.987 inches high. I do know that that is the correct size, but you want to always make sure that you check the size, because if the size is incorrect, it is not going to layer onto the printed version correctly. Okay, so we went ahead and we ungrouped that. So I'm going to take the N and the O and I'm going to move that out of the way. And we are going to cut the S first. All right, and so we're going to just place it here. Today I'm not going to be using a mat. I'm just going to put the HTV in as is, and I want to head over to cutting. So we're going to select Send Design. Now that we have that selected, and the S is the only thing showing up because that is the only thing on the canvas, okay? So when I place the other two letters on the outside of the canvas, the cutting software is not going to recognize that as something that we want to actually cut. All right, so everything looks good. All artwork that fits on page, we can leave that just as is. I'm going to select Send. Once I select Send, I need to make sure that we mirror this. So I am going to select Mirror. All right, now that we have it mirrored, I can get ready to cut this. We're going to be using the cutter settings, so we'll definitely make sure that it is set correctly. But other than that, y'all, everything looks good, and we can get ready to send this to the cutter.
So now we're going to get ready and cut our glitter mesh. We're just using some Cricut glitter mesh HTV. And I'm just sliding this through, and I am going to line it up with our guide here. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is as it should be. I do straight. Alright, so now we're going to lower the pinch wheels, and then I am going to use the arrows on the screen to bring our HTV back so that it is ready for cutting. And that also means me making sure that the blade is directly over the corner of the material. So we're going to access the cut settings on the screen. So we're going to change this to, I'm going to select the glitter option, and we're going to select glitter, and I'm going to select load, and we're going to get ready to cut it. Alright guys, so we're done cutting, and you can see that it cut nicely. So we're going to go ahead and finish cutting the other two pieces, and we will head over to the heat press.
Now it's time to weed our HTV, and this weeded out beautifully. Even though this is a Cricut material, the Siser setting for glitter HTV worked just fine, and I was able to weed this out with no problem. It did not cut through to the carrier sheet, so I'm super happy with the cut.
Alright guys, so we have our vinyl already weeded out. We have our Dtf prints, and this is the final print that we printed out, where they both printed out correctly. Now, if you ever have a situation where you do have some smearing or anything like that, with this particular design, you can possibly just cut out the good areas and just reprint the areas that did not print correctly, especially if you have it saved as an SVG or you have it saved in your Silhouette library. So you'll be able to go and make any adjustments at that time. But we are just going to go ahead and get ready to press one of these designs, and we will be using a pair of black jeans to get that done. Alright guys, so we're going to get ready to press the design, and you want to make sure you lint roll whatever it is that you're using and also pre-press it. So we're going to lint roll our jeans, and we're going to give it a pre-press. For today's press, we will be pressing everything at 325 degrees. And the first set of presses we're going to do for 25 seconds. All right, that's enough. All right. For today's press, we will also be using some pressing pillows just to help us lift up the center parts of the material. With the jeans, the seams are kind of thick, and so we want to make sure that the DTF transfer and the HTV is getting the proper amount of pressure, even though, you know, there are obstacles possibly in its way. Now we are going to get ready to begin pressing, and I just want to make sure that I have this lined up correctly, and we actually do. If you want to pull it down to the end, you can, but I'm gonna have Senior start right here where it's still slightly on the thigh. And I'm just trying to make sure that we don't have anything underneath the press that's going to affect the pressure. All right, guys, so now we're going to get ready to press. And I'm just going to use way too much pressure. But I do want to make sure that it has enough pressure. And so this is going for 25 seconds right now. All right. Next, we're going to press the bottom portion. Okay, so now we want to let this cool off because this is a cool peel. So I'm gonna let this cool off. All right, so we let this cool off, and now we're going to get ready to peel it. And that is looking pretty good. All right, y'all, so before we press the HTV on top, we're just going to give this a second press for about 7 seconds. And that's good. Next, we're going to do it again. Now, if you want to skip this step, you can, as far as when you get ready to press your HTV, but you always want to give your DTF print a second press. The HTV press would give it a second press, but I just want to go ahead and press it without the HTV. All right, so we're all good. And now it's time for us to place our HTV on. Since we already have it positioned here, we're going to go ahead and start with the O. Now we're going to press this. So I have a Teflon sheet here, a Teflon cover, so I can go ahead and just press this like this. And I'm keeping the heat press at 325 degrees, but I would press this for about 15 seconds. All right, this should be a warm peel. Let's see, and it is. So there we have our first press of HTV. Now we're going to press the other pieces. We're going to do that all together. All right, so let's put this on top, and then we'll place the S. I'm just used to placing the parchment paper on top. I can't help it. I did let that go for a little bit longer. And here we have our design. And I absolutely love how it came out. So if we wanted to at this point, we could add more, or we could add. So at this point, if you wanted to add some screen print confetti to the pants, you can, if you want to kind of like sprinkle it around. Also, if you had a design for the other side, you would go ahead and apply that to there, or if you had other patchwork or anything that you wanted to put on here. But for today, these are our pants. And I think they look absolutely gorgeous. All right, y'all, so we are all done, and I know that that was a long one, almost like a documentary. It's like super, super long. But thank you so much if you are still here. I do appreciate you sticking around. Hopefully you learned something, and y'all, these came out absolutely beautifully. I love how these came out. Now I am going to put some other images onto this side and maybe even onto the pockets in the back, but I haven't figured out just yet. So our objective today has been met. We did this, and I truly hope that you have learned how to create something like this inside of Silhouette Studio. And the best part is that it doesn't have to be DTF. You can use this with regular SVG, HTV, vinyl. You can even print out for sublimation. But a link to everything that I used is listed below in the description, from the design software to the printer to, of course, the Siser Romeo. Everything is listed below. But I do appreciate you guys for watching. If you have not, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, make sure to check out my other content. In addition, head over to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and join the Craftable Things communities there as well. But that's it for today, y'all. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.